Rece Hinds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. You are Locked On Rece Hinds with myself, Jeff Carr. I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've turned an addiction to this team into information for you. I want to thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your day, and I want to thank you for listening to me talk some Reds with you as I try to bring this show to you every single day, be as a relatable Reds talk as possible, because we're talking about our favorite team, the Cincinnati Reds. We'll try to dive into some geeky stats. We'll overreact to the everyday movements. We'll overreact to the everyday movements of Rece Hinds, because he has absolutely set this Reds lineup on fire, and I absolutely love it. We're, of course, going to get into what was, if his first game was amazing, then his second game was bananas amazing, banana amazing. I don't know what a word is for that, but he was fantastic in his second career game, even more so than his first career game. We're going to look at that and kind of break it down, comparing it to some recent debuts that the Reds have enjoyed, because the Reds have really had a embarrassment of riches where that is concerned. I also want to talk about the rest of the lineup, the revival that Rece Hinds has brought to this group, and later on, the biggest reason why you can't quit this team. That's all coming up on today's episode that is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Where we'll start today, where we're going to start today, where we were going to for the entire game, quite frankly, he was a single shy of a cycle. A single. That's crazy to me. But Rece Hinds, when you're as hot as Rece Hinds is at the plate right now, you can't be bothered by only getting one base. He's got 5 hits in his first 2 career games, all of them for extra bases. He's kicking butt up at the plate, and I love it. But we're not going to do this thing. We're not going to get into any sort of grandiose claims about the future of Rece Hinds, but he sure seems like the real deal in a small sample size. When I mean small sample size, I'm talking about 2 games here, so we're not going to go too crazy. But man, have I enjoyed these 2 games. 2 doubles, a triple, 2 homers, one of them 450 feet, the other almost 460 feet, and he's got a couple of RBIs to boot. This guy has come up and been absolutely bonkers, absolutely redonkulous. Let's just think of all of the different words here, all of the different metaphors we can use for how good he has been at the plate. And quite frankly, there's definitely caution to be had, because it feels like the Rockies are just like, all right, sure, there's some guy coming up, whatever. Throw him a bunch of strikes, let him get himself out. And he's not doing that. He's hitting the ball a country mile. He hit 2 balls. I think it was his double. Anyway, there were 2 exit velocities over 110 miles an hour last night. Woo! And I saw on, speaking of the extra metrics and things like that, the new bat speed metric that they came up with, they can measure how quickly a bat is swung through the strike zone by a given hitter. He is up there with the likes of Giancarlo Stanton and O'Neal Cruz and the guys that swing the bat the hardest. He swings his bat almost 77 miles an hour. You talk about the power that he can generate. It's just phenomenal. And the results are undeniable. Talking about the extra bases and stuff, he has the most total bases in the first 2 games of his career since they started tracking game logs. Like you can only go back to 1901, right? Baseball was played before then, we know, especially being the first professional baseball city. But only up to 1901 do they do game logs. So looking at that, he has 15 total bases in his first 2 games. Nobody else has more than that. Up until this point, Emmett Hedrick, a center fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals back in 1901, had 14 total bases in his first 2 games. And I say first 2 games and not first 2 career games because Emmett Hedrick actually played a couple of years before 1901. It's just this was the first year that game logs was a thing. So literally first year that game logs was a thing, we had to set the record for most total bases in the first 2 games until Rece Hinds came along this year. What's that? 123? Yeah, 123 years that this record has stood. You also look at, and this list was provided on Twitter by Codify. There's some other names on here that you're not going to know. I mean, Francisco Arcia from the Los Angeles Angels, don't remember this name at all. From 2018, he was a catcher. He literally played that 1 year. Has never played in the majors again, but he had 13 total bases in his first 2 career games. Joe Cunningham, another St. Louis Cardinal, back in 1954, also had 13 total bases. A couple of names you will know had 12 total bases in their first 2 career games. Trevor Story, who started with the Colorado Rockies. He's now a Boston Red Sox, but started with the Rockies. Yasiel Puig, remember him. Manny Machado for the Orioles, and Ian Desmond for the Nationals. All those guys had 12 in their first 2 career games. And then you go all the way back to 1965, the American League Rookie of the Year, who I think we all remember so very well, Kurt Blefary, outfielder for the Baltimore Orioles. Yeah, Rece Hinds has more total bases than all of those guys in his first 2 career games. We're not going to go crazy with this and say, oh, he's the second coming of Babe Ruth. He's Frank Robinson and Joe Morgan and Pete Rose all put into one. We're not going to do that. But man, it's been fun. And let's look at this because we as Reds fans have been spoiled. I hope you know this. And quite frankly, if you're newer to the team, don't expect this to always happen. Because quite frankly, we went through multiple years of debuts that were nothing. But these last couple of years, we've seen some crazy debuts. Obviously, the biggest one was Elly De La Cruz. His first 2 career games, he was 3 for 7, so he didn't have as many hits as Rece Hinds. In fact, nobody on the current roster in their first 2 games had as many hits as Rece Hinds in his first 2 games. At least, of this current, core of the team. Elly De La Cruz, 3 for 7. He had a double, a triple, a homer, 2 RBIs, and 2 walks. Matt McLain, he was 2 for 8 with a double, an RBI, and a walk. CES was 2 for 6 with a homer and 3 RBIs. Noelvi Marte was 2 for 8 with a double and a steal, which, by the way, of this group, there's a little trivia for you to take to your friends and be like, hey, look, I know about the Reds. Did you know that of all the guys on the team, the only guy to get a steal in his first 2 career games wasn't Elly? Wasn't even McLain. It was Marte. Yeah, anyway, piece of trivia there for you. And then we go all the way back to Spencer Steer in 2022, 2 for 5 with a double, a homer, and 3 walks. Fantastic debut for him. Rece Hinds beats them all out. These first 2 games have been so much fun. And Rece Hinds has been a breath of fresh and powerful air. And quite frankly, he has led a bit of a catharsis for this lineup. A revival, if you will, because even the bottom third of the lineup got in on the revival on Tuesday night. This episode of Locked On Reds is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com. As the season rolls along, you may find that you want to travel with the Reds to their away games, kind of like what I'm doing a little bit later on this month when the Reds go down to Atlanta. And the best way to follow along with the Reds is with Booking.com. They've got so many great options when it comes to hotels, bed and breakfast. They've got van rentals, resort and so much more for you to check out in every city, including our rivals. You know, if you want to go check out Pittsburgh or Chicago, St. Louis, or Milwaukee, Booking.com, you're covered, because you can really personalize the travel to what you want, because all you have to do is search the stadium name. I put in Truist for Atlanta, and I can find the hotels closest to it or closest to other things around the city that I want to see. Booking.com makes it so easy. And they've got all these different great options for you. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, Booking.com mobile app. And as the season goes along, the best way to get to the game is with Game Time. Game Time's going to last minute deals for tickets at the lowest price guaranteed, because they're all about that last minute deal. I tell you all the time, when I go to the ball game, usually I go down, I hang out at the banks, wait till close to first pitch, and then I check out the lightning deals, the big deals that Game Time has. And plus, if you happen to take the Reds, follow the Reds to another city, you can take Game Time and find the exact right seat. They'll give you the view from your seat so you know exactly what you're getting into. Plus, they give you the upfront pricing, the all-in pricing. When you see $15 for a seat, you know how much money you pay for that seat? $15. There's no added fees, delivery fees, or surprise fees at the end at checkout, because Game Time gives you that all-in pricing. Download the Game Time app today and use code LOCKDOWNMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, get to the ball game with Game Time. Download the app and use the promo code LOCKDOWNMLB to save $20 off your first purchase. Game Time has the last minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. You've got to check out Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And speaking of every day, shout out to our everydayers out there. Thank you so much for making Locked On Reds part of your day. And thank you for becoming an everydayer. I noticed that we crossed the 8,000 subscriber threshold here on YouTube. If you're an everydayer on audio as well, thank you so much for making our Reds Talk part of your day. And make sure that you join us on social media. You can find us on Twitter and on X at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. You can find Steve at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. He's not with me today. He's traveling today. Had been in Cincinnati for the last couple of days, and he's on his way back home to Hawaii, but he should be back on with us coming up tomorrow. And on tomorrow's show, like I said, he'll be back, and we'll break down a start from Frankie Montas, and hopefully we'll be talking about the Reds securing a series win. Really, they just need to sweep this. I mean, these first 2 games have showed me that there is no reason that the Reds should lose to the Colorado Rockies. I'm sorry. I said it. I jinxed it. If they lose tonight, you can blame me. But they shouldn't be losing to this team, because the rest of the lineup had a big night. We talked about Rece Hinds ad nauseum in the first segment. There were a lot of guys that were hitting the ball. In fact, it was kind of a bad night to be a pitcher for either team. I mean, Nick Lodolo didn't have his best stuff. He also came back out after the rain delay, and he looked like he was completely off, because who wouldn't be? It's a rain delay, and you just sit there for a while, and then you come back out and you try to pitch again. You're not keyed up like you were. He had dominated his first 2 innings. He comes back out, doesn't quite pitch the same as they start the top of the third, all that other stuff, and the Rockies get back into it. The Reds had a 5-0 lead going into the rain delay, and then it was 5-4 in a blink of an eye. Brenton Doyle ended up hitting 2 homers on the night, and you also had another home run by Mike Toglia. Just a whole bunch of baseballs leaving the yard on what was a superhuman day, because all the rain, and there's different rainstorms, thunder, lightning, all this other stuff. There were tornadoes. At least sirens went off at my house. So the weather was just going crazy. And for pitchers, that was not a good day. But it was a great day for the lineup. And quite frankly, the bottom of the lineup shined. And it helps that Rece Hinds was batting 7th, but the 7th, 8th, and 9th hitters went 7 for 13 for the Reds. And they had 9 of the Reds' 11 total RBIs. But that's not just Rece Hinds. That's also 2 singles from Santiago Espinal and a multi-hit day for Will Benson. I tell you, the days that we talk about him and that we say that we're worried about him and that we say that the Reds should just send him down no matter what and just deal with it, that's when he goes off. Hit a home run, also had a single, scored a couple of times. Like, good night for him. But also, outside of the bottom third of the lineup, Tyler Stephenson had a big night. The lineup itself, too, like, consider this, was a little shook up right before first pitch because Jonathan India was a late scratch with a knee contusion. Now, I think that this was partially like, okay, maybe something happened and they're being super precautionary because, like I said, they're facing the Rockies. They can do that when they face the Rockies. And with that meant that he was out of the lineup and you had to have Santiago Espinal play second base, but that put Spencer Steer in the leadoff spot, and that put Tyler Stephenson batting fourth. Those 2 guys, batting completely out of position, actually had big nights. Tyler Stephenson had 2 doubles and a homer. It was actually his first home run since June 3rd. Dude hadn't left the ballpark in a while. And then you had Spencer Steer. He also hit a home run. He was 1 for 3 with that homer. He also had 2 walks. So as a leadoff hitter goes, that's pretty good. You had 5 plate appearances, and you got on base 3 times, one of them being a home run. That's all right with me. There's overall just a great day. Elly had a hit and a walk. He actually didn't end up scoring or stealing, so the Elly parlay did not hit. Of all things, I mean, on a night when the Reds score 11 runs, you kind of figure that the Elly parlay is going to hit. It didn't hit last night, but it's been hitting here a lot lately. And heck, Edwin Rios, he got a hit, right? There were some people that, I heard them on the local talk show, or our good buddy Mo Egger. I heard on his show there was a guy calling in like, who's this Edwin Rios guy? He's like, yeah, he's called up because they're just trying to fill roster spots at this point, and he played first base, and he went 1 for 4, and he scored, and he had a walk. Pretty nice there. But enough of the box score. Like, this was the kind of thing that the lineup needed to see. And thank you to the Colorado Rockies. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that in jest. It's easy to joke and make fun and point fingers and be like, holy cow, the Rockies are terrible. But we as Reds fans of all people should be able to at least appreciate what the Reds are doing to the Rockies because it's been done to us so many times in years past. And I don't take these lightly. I hope that the team doesn't either, because when we say that the Reds have a chance to stack wins, this is what we're talking about. Because, as I mentioned, the pitching didn't have that great of a night, and at one point, the Reds' lead went from 5-0 to 5-4. Were you really worried? I wasn't. I know that there was a rain delay and things like that kind of messed stuff up, but I knew that the Reds were going to figure out a way to score enough runs to win. Because they're facing a team like the Rockies that the pitcher for the Rockies on Tuesday night was Cal Quantrill, one of their best pitchers on the year. If you look at his different statistics, the Reds thoroughly dominated him. He couldn't throw a pitch plateward that didn't look like a beach ball to them. And that's a great thing. And, these last 2 games, there's 2 things that are in common. They're playing the Colorado Rockies, and Rece Hinds is on the lineup. So maybe that combination equals lineup revival. I would love to see them do this against the Brewers or the Cardinals or the Pirates or the Cubs. Maybe that will carry over, but you got 2 more games against the Rockies. You got 3 against the Marlins, and then you got the All-Star break. That's going to be the hard thing about this, right? Like, you can envision a world where the next 5 games, the Reds lineup just goes crazy. And then the All-Star break, resets that. I don't know. But for right now, at least, it looks like they're having a bit of a revival. And that's a lot of fun to see. But the lineup isn't isn't the thing that gets people coming back. In fact, for most of the season, the lineup has been the thing that everybody points to as the reason why they're giving up on this team. There's one thing that consistently keeps the Reds in the conversation for the playoff race. I'll tell you what that is coming up next. Have you been making money on Elly De La Cruz performances or even Rece Hinds performances? Well, you should, and you should do it over at Prize Picks. They're America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, because all you have to do is you pick your favorite players, you pick your favorite stats, and you click more or less. It's that easy. You don't have to give them a specific number like that. They give you a number. You click more, you click less on that number. And if you're right, the winnings come into you. Very easy, very quick. You can make your picks in like 60 seconds or less. And all you have to do is you pick two or more or less stats on players, and you put together your Prize Picks entry. And in some cases, as little as 4 picks can get you 100 times your money. So check out Elly De La Cruz steals, check out Rece Hinds homers, and maybe check out some Frankie Montas strikeouts today. I don't know. Check it out against these Rockies here over on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code, all lowercase, LOCKEDONMLB, and get a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's code, all lowercase, LOCKEDONMLB, for a first deposit match of up to $100 over on Prize Picks. Because all you have to do is click more or click less. It's that easy. It's all about that starting rotation, baby. That's what's keeping this Reds team relevant. And before I really dive into that, I wanted to let you know that you can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app, take it with you everywhere you go, and search the word Reds. Also, make sure you check out, you bookmark CincinnatiRedsTalk.com. It's great written content about your Cincinnati Reds. I'm writing over there. Greg Kuffner's writing over there. James Erpine's writing over there. A lot of great Reds content for you each and every day in written form to follow along with you and I conversing, as it were, about your Cincinnati Reds. And look, if you're a person that is saying that I'm done, I don't think this team can make the playoffs, I'm not convinced by a couple of wins against the lowly Rockies, all this other stuff, I'm not going to fight you about it, but I'm going to ask you, what about the pitching? Because the starting pitching specifically, the bullpen's been a little bit up and down, mostly up, but there's been some downs that have felt really, really bad. But the starting pitching has been phenomenal. And consider the 5 that are in the rotation right now. I find it interesting that Graham Ashcraft was sent back down. Again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Steve and I did, but the Reds are basically saying we've got our 5 for the moment. Graham Ashcraft isn't good enough for the moment to crack these 5 spots, and so he's got to go work on stuff and get good enough to be part of that 5. And I greatly respect that. The Reds are not trying to, stuff a square peg into a round hole and saying that just because he could be part of our future, we're going to make sure that he continues playing right now in the present despite his struggles. And they could be doing that in other areas. It's just there's been a lot of injuries that have decimated stuff on the position side, so they have had to do that. But on the pitching side, they don't, and they haven't been. And when you look at the 5 guys that they've got now, Hunter Greene, newly minted all-star Hunter Greene, by the way, that was awesome to see. The Los Angeles Dodgers put Tyler Glasnow on the injured list, which means he will be unavailable for the All-Star game. That spot was vacated. Hunter Greene was announced that he will join Elly De La Cruz in Texas for the All-Star game. It is absolutely much deserved. And he is a huge part of what I'm about to say, because when you look at Hunter Greene, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott, Frankie Montas, and Carson Spires, and their last 5 starts, now Carson Spires only has 4 starts, so a little bit of an asterisk by that, but the other 4 guys, their last 5 starts, when you put that all together, you got 24 total starts by the current 5 pitchers. And this isn't including Nick Lodolo's last start last night, because weather and all that, I'm not counting that. But the 5 starts before that for him. 24 total starts by the 5 guys in this rotation. They have a 3.4 ERA collectively during this time period. They're averaging 5 2/3 innings per start. And that's considering some outings from Frankie Montas where he couldn't get out of the second inning because he was throwing too many pitches. Carson Spires not necessarily starting off his rotational employment as a, we're expecting him to go 6 or 7 innings type of guy. They've been getting a lot of longevity out of their starters. And I love this stat too, because when you put together hits and walks over these 24 starts by these 5 guys, they're not even averaging 7 base runners. It's just barely below 7 base runners per start. That's phenomenal. They've done such a good job of limiting damage, but the biggest reason they've limited damage is because there's not guys on the base paths. It's not as if we're seeing this Reds starting staff, giving up walks, giving up hits, but limiting the damage by pitching around base runners. It's been a lot of clean innings. This Reds pitching staff from the starting perspective has been very consistent. As much as we talk about we want consistency in the lineup, we want consistency out in the field with the glove, on the base pass, things like that. We've had consistency on the mound this year. And I think that's what has made the lineup and the fielding and the base running so frustrating, because the pitching has consistently put this team in a position to win. And even over this stretch here, Hunter Greene, his last 5 starts have been particularly impressive. Like, if you're confused as to why Hunter Greene is an all-star, then look at these last 5 starts. I mean, it's the whole first half, obviously, that gets you into the all-star game, but he has turned it up another notch. He has allowed just 30 total base runners in these last 5 starts, and he has 32 strikeouts, more strikeouts than base runners allowed. This is what we were talking about with Hunter Greene. When it comes to where he sits on this team, he should be the ace, the best pitcher on this team. And quite frankly, the Reds are a little bit spoiled in that you could argue that Nick Lodolo's in there. You might be even able to argue that Andrew Abbott should be in that conversation. But Hunter Greene is definitely at the forefront of it because of all of his great stuff. He has just been fantastic this year. But he is leading this group. Andrew Abbott, I mentioned him. Over his last 5 starts, he's got an ERA under 2.5. And in fact, according to Baseball Reference, according to their equation for wins above replacement, he and Hunter Greene are level in WAR. It's just been such a great season. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If you listen to us talk a lot in the preseason, spring training and all that stuff, we were like, dude, what are we going to get out of this starting rotation, right? There's upside, but there wasn't a whole lot of proven talent, right? There's hopeful talent, there's upside talent, there's could be good talent, prospective talent, but they hadn't proved anything. They're proving it now. And this is the reason why I can't quit a postseason feeling with this team. Because if their pitching is going to keep them in every game, the hitting doesn't have to be that good. Rece Hinds could be what this team needs. And I'm not saying that in a consistent basis. I'm not saying that for the next, what are we at? 91 games, so 70-something games. I'm not saying for the next 70-something games he's going to hit 400. That's just not possible. He's not Ted Williams. But if he can be hot for a little bit, and if his hot stretch can kind of help elevate everybody else in the lineup for a little bit, and then somebody else gets hot for a while, and then maybe Matt McClain comes back, and then maybe Elly De La Cruz gets consistently hot. I mean, he is still on pace to be absolutely amazing this year. He's already crushed the steals over-under number. He's getting close to his homer over-under number. And his wins above replacement, at least according to Fangraphs, is already above 4. So the 6 wins above replacement for Elly is definitely doable, but I digress. The whole idea here is the lineup doesn't have to be everybody producing all at once all the time. When you've got a pitching staff that is this good. Every single day, going out there, 4, 5, 6. Hopefully it's more 5, 6, 7. But at least you know you're getting 5 good innings out of your starter. How many times could we say that over the past couple of years? And that's the way the game's going now. Like if you're complaining that, why are you saying 5 good innings and not 6 good innings? That's just how the game works now. It's all about 100% effort. And there are pitchers who can pitch with less than 100% effort, but those guys are aces. You're not getting that out of your 5th starter. You're probably not getting it out of your 4th starter. And depending on how good your pitching staff is, I don't think you're getting it out of your 3rd starter as well. The Reds are blessed with 3 guys who I believe don't have to throw 100% of the time. And that's Greene, Lodolo, and Abbott. But this starting staff, man, like, if you look at the starting pitching staff for the Cincinnati Reds and you still think that there's absolutely no shot at a postseason, you got to tell me why. I would love to hear in the comment section. I'd love to hear on Twitter. I don't agree. I look at this starting staff and I say, this could be the reason that they're still in this at the end. And you see all the numbers. You see the fact that they've got a positive run differential, which means that the wonderful term of the Pythagorean win-loss record for the Reds should actually be above 500, not below 500. That doesn't always mean that they're going to end the season above 500, but they've got the right things in place to do that. And if they make a move or two, I seriously think this is a wild card team. And the pitching is the biggest reason why. But that's going to do it for us here today on this Locked On Reds podcast. Thank you so much for checking out today's edition of the Locked On Reds. Make sure, if you're not, that you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Become an everydayer. Join those folks who join us every single day. We appreciate everybody that does, because we love talking about Reds baseball with as many Reds fans as we possibly can get in front of. Steve will be back with me tomorrow as we break down a Frankie Montas start. And who knows, maybe Rece Hinds will hit for the cycle. I probably just jinxed it. Oh well, whatever. We talk about baseball all the time, so if I jinx everybody I talk about, then, well, the Reds ain't never going to do anything. Huh? So, yeah, anyway, that'll do it for us here today. Thanks so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast, because you know that every single day we will be Locked On Reds every single day.